for form's sake. Now listen, this is the main deal I've been waiting for. At a later encounter with Garuba, Ogundibe said, go back and ask them the minimum condition they, the northern mutineers, are prepared to give to stay in Nigeria. Once more, Joseph Garuba got into his Land Rover and drove to Ikeja. As he was leaving, a call came in from Onitsha. It was who? Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu, military governor of the Eastern region. Ogundibe took the telephone. Now let's listen. Pay close attention. Hello, what's happening? Where is the Supreme Commander? Ironsi, Ojukwu asked. Nobody knows where the Supreme Commander has been taken to. He and Lieutenant Colonel Fajui were arrested in Ibadan yesterday. The northern troops have staged a counter coup. They have sent their families back to the north and they want to break up the country. Ojukwu now responded, is it not possible for you to become the Supreme Commander? You are the next most senior officer in the army. I will then. Ogundibe interrupted him and said, forget it. An ordinary soldier will not obey me. I will announce my support for you. This is Ojukwu talking now. I will announce my support for you within 30 minutes of your announcing your takeover. Ogundibe said, listen, Ojukwu, forget that. We are presently negotiating with the coup makers to find out what they want. Keep in touch. Ojukwu now screamed, come on, shouted Ojukwu into the telephone. Brigadier Ogundibe held the receiver. That is, as at that time, he's walkie-talkie. Now held the receiver away from his face. Take a risk at them. He now, carried the receiver towards the soldiers. And he told Ojukwu, shout at them. Go on the air and say something. Go on the air and say something. There was silence from Ogundibe's side. He was thinking to himself, it is my life on the line, not yours. So this is what Ogundibe thought in his heart. Ojukwu continued. Tell the country you are the next most senior officer. You do not know where the Supreme Commander is, but you are trying to put the situation under control. Are you still there? Because he was silent, Ojukwu asked him, are you still there? After a long pause, yes, I am here. I will do that, Ogundibe replied. Now, after that conversation with Ojukwu, Brigadier Ogundibe did a broadcast throughout the country, declaring a state of emergency for Lagos, Abeokuta, and Ibadan. Those of you that have read the peripheral part of this story, you know this declaration as at that time, and saying that things would soon return to normal. Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu got back to Brigadier Ogundibe as soon as he had listened to the broadcast at 2:30 p.m. Ojukwu called back. That is not what I meant. Ojukwu told Ogundibe. That is not what I meant. Say something strong. Say you are stepping into Ironsi's shoe. And that's it. Brigadier Ogundibe just listened, not getting satisfaction. Ojukwu dropped the telephone. Later that evening, Brigadier Ogundibe recorded another message to the nation, calming everyone and saying there was now no cause for alarm since everything was under control. David Ejo telephoned from Benin wanting to know what was going on. The chief of staff, Ogundibe, told him what he had told Ojukwu. Then Lieutenant Colonel David Ejo now, why haven't you taken over them? The chief of staff explained the situation. Now, but I am sure the rest of the members of the Supreme Military Council would support you. Ogundibe replied, thank you, David, but it is no use. We will keep you informed, or you will find out what we work out with the coup makers. When the phone call was over, Brigadier Ogundibe took a piece of paper and wrote a letter of resignation from the army and sent it to the Ministry of Defense. He then drove to his house. At a later date, the telephone rang. Murtala Muhammad picked it up, then turned to Yakubu Gowon. It is Ojukwu. Now, this is the conversation between Gowon and Ojukwu. I need you all to listen. It is Ojukwu. He wants to speak to you. Why Murtala said that, he covered the mouthpiece of the phone, looked at Gowon directly and said to Gowon, now, I want to know every word he says to you before you reply. That is what Murtala Muhammad told Gowon. Beautiful. The others in the room, in addition to Gowon and Murtala Muhammad, Justice Mohammed Bello, Shitu Alao of the Air Force, Buba Usman of Military Intelligence, nodded in agreement. So they agreed with Murtala Muhammad. Quickly, Gowon could be kind. He was not the kind of ruthless person who should deal with these people, thought Murtala Muhammad. That was what Murtala Muhammad thought in his heart. The only way to ensure that he did not make any commitment which they could not accept was to monitor every word that he had to say. The telephone conversation was therefore very slow. Ojukwu was recording the conversation. What is going on? Ojukwu asked. Gowon narrated the incidents of the last few days as innocently as possible, using the passive tense to maintain ambiguity. The other ranks, mutiny and deaths have occurred. The Supreme Commander and the military governor of the West were arrested and nothing is known of their whereabouts. So what is being done? The most senior officer is, this is Ojukwu talking now, the most senior officer is Brigadier Ogundigbe. Let him step in and restore order until we find out what has happened to the Supreme Commander, that is Ironsi. Gowon said that is out of the question. Ojukwu now said why? Gowon continued, the boys who organized the revolt insist that they want the North to go separate. This is Gowon who said it. Heaven did not fall. Ojukwu now said, well, Gowon continued. They said I should step in as head of state and supreme commander of the armed forces. Ojukwu now told him, you can take over Lagos, but definitely not in the east. I have already been in contact with all, Ojukwu, this is Gowon saying now, I have already been in contact with all the other members of the Supreme Military Council and they agreed that I should take over. Ojukwu now said that is impossible. There are other senior officers in the army, in the armed forces, including the armed forces. The line of succession would have been something like this. Ojukwu now mentioned them. Commodore Way, head of the Nigerian Navy, Brigadier Ogundigbe, who had already resigned from the army, Colonel Adeyinka Adebayo, who would have been as unacceptable as Ogundigbe, Lieutenant Colonel Bassi, Lieutenant Colonel Imo, Lieutenant Colonel Njoku, who would be anathema to the mutineers because you already engaged them in Ibadan. Don't forget. Then came in alphabetical order Lieutenant Colonel David Ejo, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, Lieutenant Colonel Odumegu Ojukwu. Both Gowon and Ojukwu had been promoted to the level of Lieutenant Colonel on the same date of April 1st, 1964. And that's about 2 years prior to this time. That's about 2 years. Listen, Ojukwu continued. If you want to take over simply as chief of staff of the army and only as such in Lagos so that you can bring the situation under control, I shall cooperate with you so that Ogundigbe or whoever is next in seniority can assume power. As I said earlier, Gowon replied, the other governors have agreed to my takeover. But there is no governor in the West, answered Ojukwu. Ojukwu told him, but there is no governor in the West because Ogundigbe have resigned. Gowon said, all the same, I have talked to someone who can answer for the West and he agrees with my taking over. Ojukwu now told him, I do not recognize you as Supreme Commander, insisted Ojukwu. I am making a statement to the nation later tonight. Anyway, Ojukwu dropped the telephone and switched off the tape recorder. He got up and lit a cigarette. There was no way he would blah 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 blah. Beautiful. Now my question when I get to ask BC, the rest of the army colonel, major generals then when they mention for the list, where were they? Because in the whole saga now only Ojukwu now we see. The rest of them they're showing them all of them. We didn't hear anything from them. And be it as it may, the East don't already make alliance with the West. You see, I say Ojukwu call Baba Tunde Ogundigbe say, take over. I am behind you. David Ejo from Midwestern region don't already move along with them. So the East, Midwest, and then West, they were already together. But Ogundigbe no gree declare himself. Because of fear. Because of fear, Ogundigbe resign. Leave Nigeria to carry your team by itself, consign now. But Ojukwu was fearless. He had to call Gowon. And the same Gowon, when no one use it here, say, Ojukwu mentioned disintegration. The same Gowon use his own mouth, announce and say, the northern soldiers said that they want the North to leave Nigeria. As at the time he was canvassing for them, no be crime. Nobody call for any rain. But the moment Ojukwu mentioned, why would he mention it? For what? Who gave him the effrontery? Is he a human being? And some of us, they don't twist our mind. We dey online, they write all manners of terrible narrative. Write lies. I don't know what I want gain from lies. I don't know what I want gain. Just as life may have it. You see Murtala Mohammed, when I see the way it end, but few years later, you should buy the gun. You go buy the gun also. On I tell you, if you don't agree push yourself off all this unnecessary tribal bigotry, unnecessary tribal ego, wanna get whenever fetch you 1 naira. Until then you chi. We know they pray. I don't go feel food now.